evolution of the King Kong movie. Before I start, if you love movies, do check out my radio shows on Vintage Radio. And you can even like my page if you're really awesome as well. All the links to the URLs and everything else is below the video. King Kong is a giant movie monster, resembling a colossal ape, but a lovable one at that. If you remember rightly, the movies are actually heartbreaking, really were. If you go back and check them out, you'll know that. Not a lot of people know this, but before the most well-known King Kong movie that everyone can recall, we had a film called The Monster Walks in 1932, a year before the big one. People in an old dark house on a stormy night are menaced by a killer ape. Remind you of anything? The film stars Willie Best. He's probably the most well-known star of the film. Directed by Frank R. Strayer. And I thought I recognised his name because he did The Vampire Bat in 1933 and Murder at Midnight in 1931. The big one came along in 1933. A film crew goes to a tropical island for an exotic location shoot and discovers a colossal giant gorilla who takes a shine to their female blonde star. He is then captured and brought back to New York City for public exhibition. It stars Fay Wray, as Anne. Robert Armstrong, you have Bruce Cabot as well. The beautiful Fay Wray is the most famous, of course. Famous scene, one of the best in movie history, is King Kong climbing the Empire State Building. Absolutely mesmerising cinematography. How they done it was terrific. It has been ranked by Rotten Tomatoes as the greatest horror film of all time and the 20th greatest film of all time, so it has an awful lot of street cred. Merian C. Cooper, the director's first vision for the film was of a giant ape on top of the world's tallest building fighting airplanes. He worked backwards from there to develop the story. King Kong's roar was a lion's roar and a tiger's roar combined and run backwards but more slowly. When describing Kong to Fay Wray, Merian C. Cooper said, "We have the tallest, darkest leading man in Hollywood." She thought it was Cary Grant, but no, it was a big ape. You gotta love Cary Grant as well. The same year, 1933, we had Son of Kong, 1933. The men who captured the giant ape King Kong return to Skull Island and find his likewise gigantic but far more friendly son. That sounds terrific. By RKO Pictures, you recognise if you're a big film buff. Directed by Ernest Shusak, who was a big name when he mentioned the word ape. Wasei Kingu Kongu was a 1933 Japanese black and white silent film. It was a comedy that used King Kong as a backdrop to the story. 5 years later, we had King Kong Appears in Edo, 1938. Two-part silent period piece drama film set during the Edo period. The Edo period is the period between 1603 and 1868 in the history of Japan. It is considered to be a lost film, which always gives me goosebumps when I say lost film. King Kong Appears in Edo, that is. You do. I just love it. I love lost films. We had it when we did the evolution of the vampire movie, when we talked about one of the lost vampire films from the early 20s. Come the 1940s, we got The Ape, Boris Karloff, the legend. Karloff is a doctor researching a way to help a wheelchair-bound patient use her legs again. The only way he can achieve this is by procuring spinal fluid from a human. When an ape escapes from a circus, Dr. Adrian kills it in a confrontation and successfully uses it in spinal fluid on Francis. But he needs more. Using the ape's body as a suit, he kills townspeople in a crazed attempt to complete his plan. I know it's not a lot to do with giant apes, but it is interesting, and it's horror, and it's Karloff, so I've got to mention it. 3 years after, we had Captive Wild Woman, 1943. And there's a reason I had to mention The Ape, 1940. It's for this movie. Captive Wild Woman, a mad doctor, John Carradine, of course. John Carradine turns an animal trainer's ape into Paula, the ape woman. And you gotta love a bit of John Carradine as well. Mighty Joe Young, 1949. The ape, much bigger in the film adaptation than in the book. And it's strikingly similar to Kong as well, if you analyse it. We only had one in the 50s. With Gorilla at Large, 1954, horror mystery B-movie made in 3D. At a carnival called Garden of Evil, a man is murdered, apparently by a gorilla, or someone in a gorilla suit. The front cover is very reminiscent of King Kong 1933. Raymond Burr is in this one. Who we mentioned in our Evolution of the Godzilla movie and Evolution of the Alfred Hitchcock movie. The 1960s arrived with Conga, 1961. Dr. Decker comes back from Africa after a year, presumed dead. During that year, he came across a way of growing plants and animals to an enormous size. He brings back a baby chimpanzee to test out his theory. As he has many enemies at home, he decides to use his chimp, Conga, to get rid of them. Then Conga grows to gigantic proportions and wreaks havoc all over the city of London. London town. Stars Michael Gough from Batman and Horror of Dracula fame. A year after, another big one with King Kong vs. Godzilla, 1962. Two giants of cinema collided. Kong, the elder of the two. The monster ape and dinosaur toss around a boulder and slug it out in Mount Fuji. A pharmaceutical company captures King Kong and brings him to Japan, where he escapes from captivity and battles a recently released Godzilla. Bit camp nowadays, but still enjoyable. It took a few more years before King Kong escapes in 1967, another Japanese movie produced by Toho, known for Godzilla series, which is the longest running movie franchise. The monster ape fights his robot replica and falls for a woman from a commander's expedition, similar to the ape falling in love with Fay Wray in the classic. At the end of the 60s, we had the Mighty Gorga, and Night of the Bloody Apes. The Mighty Gorga is, the synopsis for that is, a circus manager leads a band of intrepid explorers to an African plateau where a giant gorilla is rumoured to live. Night of the Bloody Apes is a Mexican horror film. 1970s. 1976 in particular was a strong year for the chimp. King Kong, 1976. Stars Jess Lang, Jeff Bridges, Charles Grodin, directed by John Guillermin, who we will mention again when we're talking about King Kong. For shots of Kong holding Jessica Lange, the filmmakers built a giant hydraulic gorilla arms. The hands were 6 feet across and the arms weighed 1,650 pounds each. The design was complex, so the arms were not ready until shooting was well underway. When they were finally built, producer Dino De Laurentiis was invited to the set to witness a test. He walked into the studio and the giant arm extended in his direction. Then the middle finger slowly uncurled and extended itself. De Laurentiis broke up, so did the arm. It was frozen, finger up, for a week. Queen Kong, 1976 again, the same year, a British comedy. Because of legal difficulties with the owners of the copyright on King Kong, this film was never released theatrically. According to his memoirs, Robin Asquith and Rula Lenska were aghast at how bad the finished film, and both were pleased it was never given a release. Rula Lenska is known for Coronation Street, EastEnders, One Foot in the Grave, The Detectives, Minder, Doctor Who. Don't laugh at this next one, okay? King Kung Fu, 1976. A gorilla that knows martial arts takes Ray Fay, see what they did there, Ray Fay, to the top of the tallest building in Wichita, Kansas. Ape was the last one in 1976. A newsman, a starlet, and the US and Korean armies follow a giant ape on the rampage. We need to talk about King Kung Fu in a bit more detail. Began filming in 1974. Production was shut down several times when they ran out of money, and it was finally released in 1987. That's quite a shame, then, isn't it? Really. I want to look into this in more detail. King Kung Fu. John Bailey is in this, and Maxine Gray. Next year, The Mighty Peking Man, 1977, literally king of the orangutans. It is a monster film produced by Shaw Brothers Studio to capitalise on the craze surrounding the 1976 remake of King Kong. The film was originally released in the US in 1980 as Goliathan. Bye Bye Monkey in 1978, Italian-French film. A man walking along a beach near New York City finds the corpse of a King Kong and the ape's orphaned son. King Kong Lives, 1986, the only King Kong movie to be released in the 80s. If you know any I've missed, please comment below and tell me. John Gillerman again. The film was a sequel to the 1976 remake of King Kong. King Kong was fading away but made a short pop-up in 1992. I have to mention this. King Ape Homer, Treehouse of Horror, the third. 5th episode in the 4th season of The Simpsons. I have to show a clip because it's very good. It's The Simpsons. In the 1990s, The Mighty Kong came out in 1998 and Mighty Joe Young were released. I'm going to focus more on The Mighty Kong because it's an animation starring Dudley Moore as Kong, Jodie Benson as Anne. It was a direct-to-DVD musical adaptation of King Kong, so if you're into that sort of stuff, it's right up your street. We had to wipe away the cobwebs, blow away the dust that had gathered before we got to King Kong 2005. The cast: Naomi Watts, Jack Black, Andy Serkis, Adrian Brody, Jamie Bell. It's an all-star cast. We have Peter Jackson, who directs, who is known for Brain Dead Live and, of course, Lord of the Rings. This one is up here with the best of the King Kong movies. It took 18 months to craft the CGI version of the Empire State Building. The real thing was built in 14 months. This film held the record for being the most expensive ever made in the US until it was topped by Spider-Man 3 in 2007. Its box office was $550.5 million US dollars. Budget was $207 million US dollars. I think they paid the original King Kong with enough respect and credit in this one. Kong, King of Atlantis, the same year, 2005, was direct-to-DVD children's animated adaptation of King Kong. Now we're at the end of 2016, going on 2017, we'll have Kong Skull Island from an up-and-coming director in 2017. It took a long time coming, it's a highly anticipated movie. Explorers Tom Hiddleston, Samuel L. Jackson and John Goodman encounter a gigantic ape and other monstrous creatures after travelling to an uncharted island in the Pacific Ocean. It's like King Kong meets Gulliver's Travels. Brie Larson's in it, John C. Reilly too. Do check out the trailer, the Comic-Con trailer on YouTube. The noises it makes at the end and the way it looks, just stunning. Oh mama, it's scary. The story looks solid too. Godzilla vs. Kong in 2020, which I'm highly psyched for. Let me know what your favourite flick is from the King Kong franchise, and tell me if you're looking forward to the new and up-and-coming films. We have Kong Skull Island and Godzilla vs. Kong, which I'm so happy for. If you are a film buff, check out my radio show. I do movie specials. It'd be great if you could like my Facebook page. It would really make my day. As well as you can join me as well on Wednesdays and Thursdays. The links are below. And thank you so much for watching. But before I go, I just wanted to say, next up, I want to do the evolution of the Wes Craven movie in honour of him, and evolution of the slasher genre. 2 videos I'm highly looking forward to making. And if you have any ones you want me to do comment actually and tell me what one you want me to do next. If you check out the series, it's on a playlist now. So if you go onto my page, you can go onto the playlist of all my evolution of videos and just let me know what ones you want me to do next. So look forward to evolution of the Wes Craven movie and evolution of the slasher genre coming up next. Thank you so much. Thanks again.